Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
Hey, Monday morning. Glad you're with us. Golic, Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. Fellas, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Spent a little time in Arizona.
Yes.
That was very nice. The wife and I, then we were in Boston yesterday with Mike and with my son Jake and Jenny, who own a couple of those Orange Theory Fitnesses. We had a little fundraiser there. For a 90-minute class, so that was to raise some money, raise money.
Raise some money, a group called Daughters for Dads. Yep. A friend of mine at Notre Dame, Jordy Shoemaker, was a lacrosse player there, lost her father to cancer when we were at school, and so with the Notre Dame women's lacrosse team, had been putting on this event for a while, and it was something that she partnered with Jake and Jenny, my brother and my sister-in-law on, and so we were up there, a part of that, raising some money for cancer research, putting on a workout class. So we had a lot of nurses from the hospital that Jordy works at there, and everyone kind of coming out to support the cause. So that was a nice portion of the weekend that for me made me actually pull myself away from the screen where I was glued.
Yeah, how about it?
I was up at midnight on Saturday night watching the second half of the Seahawks preseason game. I'm a 20-something not out drinking and having fun, so I can watch second half preseason football.
I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting there because we flew in from Arizona to Boston. We all stayed at Jake and Jenny's house late and got there, and I sat on the couch and watched that as well, and just kept looking over at Mike, thinking what a loser he was. He wasn't out.
Listen, I have
not the lie.
I have no problem with you doing that. Although I do have a problem with something else I heard from you. You were a little too enthusiastic about the chill in the air. Because I get it. I like my favorite fall days are when the sun is strong on your face, but you take a little breathe in and it gets you in the chest.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
Little bite.
But we know after that what's coming. Let's enjoy. Pump the brakes a little bit. Let's enjoy summer as long as summer is here.
I'm kind of with Mike on that one. It was because I remember I asked Jenny in the morning. It was Sunday morning. I said, "Oh, is it warm out?" She said, "No, it's a little chilly." And I thought, "Oh, all right, just a little long sleeve shirt." Just a light one I heard you talking about. Just with I didn't mind the little chill. I wish it would stay right there. But to your point,
there's
Trey,
the problem.
I get it. But man, it felt nice.
I'm talking about a moment and a feeling. I'm not punting on summer by any stretch of the imagination. Let's not get that twisted. But that moment and that feeling, if you could catch that in a bottle.
Yeah. By the way, summer's almost over.
Yeah, shut up.
Sorry.
Shut up.
I hate to be the Grim Reaper here, but it's almost over.
I don't. Why do you got to do that?
Whatever.
By the way, I was up. I was in Nova Scotia.
Yes,
so it was
you
a little
were.
Chilly. Unbelievable, this place. The Cabot Cliffs and Cabot Links golf courses, just outstanding.
And someone in your group hit a home run? Yeah. A hole-in-one and a home run.
Yes, they hit a home run. Yes, they hit a home run.
A hole-in-home run, then it wasn't you.
No, it was Brandel Chambly, our guy from the Golf Channel.
Show off.
Right, really?
Yeah, what a show off.
And by the way, he hit it, and he just turns to me and goes, holds up one finger.
Did he buy drinks?
Yes, he did.
Is that still, I'm not,
he did.
We golf, Mike and I, a few times a year, even though I'm pretty much playing well enough now to beat you, Trey. Is that still a thing, though? When you get a hole-in-one that you're supposed to buy drinks?
Yes, absolutely. It is.
Okay.
And he took care of that. He did.
By the way, holding up the one is pretty baller. If you're going to go and do it and you just kind of give that subtle one, like, I'm all for acting like you haven't been there before, but that's the subtle, I'm just better than all you clowns.
Freaking Chambly. He just turned to us and just holds up a finger. We're like, ugh.
Yeah, I'd held up a different finger right back to him.
I did.
He's still been number one.
I did, actually.
There you go.
Just
good.
so you know, so we're all on the same page. And it was
good.
a great weekend. Glad you guys had a great weekend. Let's get into it with what's trending. And Justin Verlander had a pretty good weekend. Pitched just well enough to earn his 200th career win, and the Astros hit 5 home runs, beating the A's 9-4 to retake sole possession of the AL West.
Yeah, nice battle going back and forth there. The A's now 1 back. Seattle still hanging in there, 4.5 back. They'll be fighting for that one of the wild card spots as well. But Verlander, I mean, he didn't pitch great. Gave up 4 runs, 7 hits over the 5 1/3, but he did get that 200th career win. Now there is only 2 other actives who have over 200 career wins. That's Bartolo Colon has 247, CC Sabathia 244. I think why this is now the milestone, 200. 250 maybe is, I think, without a doubt, the next 300, because we're not getting any more 300s. We're not getting any more 300 winners. So, you're looking at, again, Sabathia is 6 away, Colon is 3 away. obviously Verlander just getting to 250. I would say that's obviously going to be the mark.
And to do it in the fashion they did in the game they did, taking back sole possession at first place, they've been tied with the A's, who had won 40 of their last 53. Like, what a disgusting tear they've been on. But
it's like the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, Houston reasserting themselves, though, certainly in that division. We know the defending champs. Verlander was the one that came out before the season and kind of reminded everyone that we are those guys. Felt a little slighted with all the talk about other teams in this, but goes out and continues to back up what has been a great time in Houston for him. He was the difference coming over last year.
And good news for Houston fans. Altuve has started his rehab assignment in AAA, so hopefully get him back soon and win in a good time that you need him.
We've got the breakfast question up on Golic and Wingo on our Twitter feed, but I wonder if we should put up something else. What's more likely to happen? We'll have another 300 game winner in baseball, or someone's going to break Emmitt Smith's all-time rushing record in the NFL, because the way the NFL is played right now,
good question.
I think that 18,500, whatever it is, yards, I don't think anybody's come within a sniff of that thing. Or Jerry Rice's receiving yard total, simply because he played forever.
The rushing record is the good comparison because, listen, we all lived the 300 number, and we all live who was the leading rusher in the NFL, and those are two bygone products now as far as the numbers that we put them at.
And I mean, single season success we've seen, guys are going to be able to top that out, but you're right, that consistency over time as a focal point of your offense seems to be dead and gone.
I think you can hang Emmitt Smith as the all-time leading rusher in the history of the NFL forever and ever and ever. And I'm pretty sure we're never going to have a 300-game winner again in baseball. So put that up. Get that on our Twitter machine. Do all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Internets, interwebs, all that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah. We continue with what's trending in baseball. And the Yankees swept the Blue Jays and have pulled to within 9.5.
Seriously? That's a line we're using?
Yeah.
Pulled to within 9.5 games?
Notice the sarcasm with which it was used.
I'm glad you used it that way, because that's an actual line that's written down here. Seriously?
You'd use that in the sarcasm font on Twitter.
It should read, the Yankees swept the Blue Jays and pulled to within, still out of it for the division title.
And got nowhere in their quest to chase the Red Sox.
I mean, come on. You keep an eye on here. Didi Gregorius, he hurts his heel in this one. Kendall Morales, he collides with. Morales took the one hopper and was in the baseline to take it. Gregorius runs into him, strains his heel, ends up going back in, but then back out. So we got to keep an eye. Looks like he may get a stint on the DL for that one.
Yeah, it's basically, I heard it was a pretty bad bruise. It sounded like on there. So something to keep an eye on, though. I mean, Gregorius was a guy who, when we talked about the Yankees around the trade deadline, part of the reason that they didn't have to really worry about going after Manny Machado, at least in their mind, and weren't as serious, is because people kept saying, well, Didi Gregorius, you get plenty of production out of that guy in the same position. Why go and be redundant at that spot now? If this turns into anything, you might start to have that twinge of regret seek in, but hopefully short stint on the DL, certainly something the Red Sox are dealing with a little bit now, and something that might be a little bit more impactful as the season goes on, just because that's starting to become a repeat issue. Now Chris Sale's second trip to the DL.
And you look and continue on the Yankees here. How about Jay Happ, still undefeated since he's come over to the Yankees? It's nice when you get a 6-run first inning. That certainly helps, thanks to Bird in his grand slam. But Happ pitching well coming over, and that's what listen, at this point for these teams we're talking about, everything is looking, shooting forward to the postseason, and with the Chris Sale issue going on in Boston, we'll see.
Well, not only that, but the Yankees are pretty happy that the Astros are now back in first place in the AL West, because the last thing the Yankees want to have is one game playoff at their place. Oh, and let's bring in the Astros to try and see if you can beat them on one game to continue your postseason run. Meanwhile, let us celebrate the marriage of Major League Baseball and the Little League World Series, as the New York Mets went on to beat the Phillies 8-2 in that Little League World Series Classic out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And it was so cool to see them out there doing the things that major leaguers or little leaguers do, shaking hands after the game, sportsmanship. And then Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard sitting there watching the Little League World Series. This was a great concept, and I hope they continue to grow.
Well, it's got to be cool for the kids to see the players
yes.
hanging around there and watching. And then as Trey said, the players, the major leaguers did the whole line handshake that you don't see in sports, and save for hockey in the postseason and when those series are over. So they did that. As far as the teams are concerned, Phillies losing this one. Phillies a half game behind Atlanta. There's some really nice races that are kind of lining up here. Phillies, as I mentioned, half behind Atlanta. They play 7 more times. The last 3 are in Philadelphia, the last 3 games of the regular season. So we'll see where that takes us. But pretty cool. I think, 3 of the players on both teams had actually played in Little League World Series.
Yeah.
When they were 12. So pretty cool moment for those players.
Very cool.
Kids, yeah.
Nice, for everyone involved to be out there. I saw our Sunday night baseball crew, some of the Baseball Tonight guys, Adnan, Timmy Kirkchen were out there. They had some of the special nickname jerseys that the players were wearing as well out there. So all of that, and then Rob Manfred still gets to come out and answer questions about the Jose Urena suspension.
Sure he does.
Which we will get into later. By the way, Manfred also announced, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, that it will be the Cubs and Pirates next year at the Little League World Series Classic. So it's a really cool thing, and it's good to see them continue to do that and see if it can help grow Little League Baseball and help grow the interest again in Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, Brandt Snedeker was in the zone this weekend, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Rode the momentum from that opening round 59, wire to wire, to win the Wyndham Championship. He finished at 21 under, the second lowest score at a PGA Tour event this season, guys.
This one got interesting at the end.
Yep.
59 on the first day. By the way, what is he, the 10th, I think, to get a 59 to break 60? But I think only the 5th to then go on and win that.
It's a 10th sub 60, because Jim Furyk actually shot a 58 a few years ago.
Okay.
Here at the
10 sub 60 and 5. He's the 5th to actually go on and win it. But he's on the 17th. CT Pan is on the 18th. And they're both 20 under.
Yeah.
And what does Pan do? And I loved his quote. He said, I heard a couple of voices in my head. Pan double bogeyed the 18th.
Yeah.
So he made it pretty easy for Snedeker to finish up. He ends up birdieing the 18th to win it by 3. But to screw up that last hole like Pan did and say, I heard voices in my own head, it kind of messed himself up. But for Snedeker, he jumped up to 30 spots or 50 spots, I should say, to number 30 on the list as we start the FedEx this week. We're going to be out there.
Absolutely, the Northern Trust.
Northern Trust out in Jersey as we get going on to see who can win $10 million.
By the way, any golfer that has ever picked up a club is very familiar with the phrase, I heard the voices in my head. Thomas Bjorn infamously once walked off a European Tour event after putting 3 drives into the water on one hole, and they said, what happened? He said, too many voices in my head. I mean, if anybody's played this game at a competitive level for any stretch of time, you're like, yep, been there, done that.
The voices in my head are usually my friends drunkenly screaming in my backswing. So different set of voices entirely.
I completely agree. The voice in my head is usually, where's the beer cart? But I usually say that out loud.
Yeah. Well, that's just like you and Austin Powers. Your inner monologue is actually coming out
there,
without you knowing it. But you mentioned it. We are you can grab your tickets for the Northern Trust Open Paramus, New Jersey, Friday, August 24th, and come watch our show for Taking in a Day at Championship Golf. It's the first event in the FedEx playoffs. By the way, Rory McIlroy has pulled out of that event. Look, his game is a mess right now, and he's like, I don't really play well there anyway, and I usually play better in the rest of the FedEx playoffs, so we'll see what happens. But again, congratulations to Brandt Snedeker. Won it in 2007, and 11 years later, wins it again in 2018. All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection just got easier. With more than 30 coverage options available, Progressive has you covered. More at progressivecommercial.com. Well, as we continue here on a Monday morning, again, I am with you, Junior, geeking out on the preseason in the NFL, and there's been a lot of talk about this new rule in football. But honestly, I think when push comes to shove this weekend, it's going to be more about a not a new rule, but a re-emphasized rule that is going to cause havoc in the regular season in the NFL. And that is the Aaron Rodgers rule. We all know what happened last year when Anthony Barr sacked Aaron Rodgers on a completely clean play, but as he finished the tackle, he landed on Aaron Rodgers, breaking his collarbone. And, a couple years back, it was his left collarbone, his non-throwing collarbone, and he was able to come back at the end of the year. Well, this was his right collarbone, and he was out for the rest of the year, and it ended their season, and it quite frankly ended the Packers' season as well. So they had a new rule of emphasis. Point of emphasis on an old rule.
Right.
They've done this a couple of times. And basically the NFL said, we're going to make sure that kind of play isn't in football anymore. A rushing defender is prohibited from committing such intimidating and punishing acts as stuffing a passer into the ground or unnecessarily wrestling or diving him down after the passer has thrown the ball. And we saw, ironically, a case of this being called in a game in Minnesota against a Jacksonville quarterback. And I got to tell you, it sure as heck looked like a good football play to me without any unnecessarily pounding or driving somebody into the ground, and they got a 15-yard penalty.
Well, I mean, again, it's going to be how they're going to interpret the rule. You're not allowed to body weight a guy, right?
Yep.
I mean,
well, it used to be you can't drive him into the ground. Now they're saying
now you can't body weight him.
Yeah.
You can't. Again, you can't land your body on him. Listen, I think I've been saying this for a couple of years now. I understand the intent of safety, but I think they've gone overboard. And I mean, God knows we'll get into the helmet rule and the ridiculousness of the calls that we're seeing right now. But as far as the body weight rule and how much it's changed, when I played in Philadelphia, Clyde Simmons was unbelievable. This was legal then. Clyde Simmons normally he was the right end, so he would come from the blind side of the quarterback, and he did an unbelievable job of he would come across the body, pin the arm of the quarterback, their throwing shoulder against their own body, and then he would pile drive him. It was legal. So, I mean, you didn't think anything of it. You know, he separated, I think in 1 year, he separated like 3 shoulders of quarterbacks. And again, you know, still want to sit there and hurt anybody, but if you're allowed to land on a guy, you're going to land a guy. That's how I was taught to tackle by my father. He said, when we were taught, square the guy up, hit him, drive him into the ground like he's not even there. I mean, that was football. That's how it was. So they are obviously changing that because they don't want us watching a bunch of backup quarterbacks. Now, as a former defensive player, my thought process is everything is happening so fast. If you willfully see a guy drive a guy into the ground, I can somewhat understand that. But in this Minnesota play, the defender was on his knees by the time the quarterback and he hit the ground. And his body weight did go on the quarterback, but in no way, shape, or form did I think it was egregious to the point of throwing a flag. But they're going to throw it. And that, unfortunately, is something the defensive players are going to have to understand. You can't at all. You're going to have to turn your body and it's so much easier said than done because that's what people are going to say. Oh, just turn your body. This is all happening in a split second.
Yeah, you can't do it that way.
It's so difficult to do, but that's what the defenders are going to be asked to do.
You just said it's a point of emphasis, a renewed point of emphasis. What do officials do during the preseason? They overflag points of emphasis. They try and make a point in all this. The outrage Olympics over the new wave of NFL rules has been really fascinating to watch in this. But in this situation, I don't think it's unfair to say, yeah, it was enforced poorly here. Like, yeah, they called a penalty in an area where it should not have been penalized. This is not what they're looking to eradicate, the hit that we saw there. But they're going to err on the side of throwing the flag more often than not in the preseason. I don't think this is going to be something that has far-reaching effects when we get to the regular season. I think the intent here is, like you said, rightly to keep quarterbacks on the field, which is a worthwhile endeavor. If it's perfect, you can work out the kinks along the way, but I would rather that be the intent than otherwise, where we all of a sudden do end up with playoff matchups against both backup quarterbacks going into. No one wants to see that in the NFL increasingly, with the focus on being an entertainment model in a world that demands that, has to kind of adhere to this stuff.
Couple of things there. One, I absolutely agree. Look, we had the Tom Brady rule after the 2008 season where he was hit from behind, or hit low, and Bernard Pollard tore up his knee in week 1, and he was out the rest of the season. So we have an Aaron Rodgers rule, or a re-emphasized rule, and now we have the Tom Brady rule going back to the start of the 2009 season after what happened in 2008. But here's why I disagree with you. I think exactly how they're calling this one in the preseason is going to be how they call it in the regular season. I think the helmet thing will work itself out. We'll get into that later. We'll have John Fox and Mike Pereira from Fox Sports is going to be joining us a little later. But I'm almost 100% convinced with the quarterback rule, this is how they're going to call it. Because remember, a couple of years ago, there was a Saints-Niners game in New Orleans, and Ahmad Brooks came in and basically hit a perfect shot on Drew Brees, but the video looked like his head moved back, and they called that one for roughing the passer, even though it was a perfect textbook tackle, the way it was set up at that time. I'm 100% convinced that the way they're doing this in the preseason, they're going to call it in the regular season, because it is a quarterback, because of what you just said. The helmet rule, I think they'll figure that out. And I may be a little optimistic about that, but I think they're going to tweak that going into the regular season. But I think you should be prepared for this play to be flagged like it is right now in the preseason going into the regular season.
I'm going to need an explanation as to why that optimism is limited to one area and not the other.
Because it's the quarterback.
I mean, that's
because it's the quarterback.
Again, that's fine, but the fact that they wouldn't adjust that one rule for egregious instances like the one that we saw this weekend that shouldn't have been called,
I don't know if they will. I don't know.
Refs just get better at calling this stuff. Like they're like the rest of us. The more they do something, the better they will get at identifying situations where it applies and where it will not.
And they listen. The way it goes down is they say, look, if you even think it's close in the preseason, throw the flag so people will understand where the parameters are. But I think everybody understands what the parameters are when it comes to quarterbacks. Don't hurt the starters. Keep them in the game for the point of making sure what you just said. We have the best entertainment out there. And I think that's not going to change.
I agree that they're going to protect the quarterbacks more. I'm not so sure the helmet gets. I hope it does, but you know what else the league is also doing? No. Paying out $1 billion.
Correct.
To a bunch of players.
Correct.
So I don't think they want to go through that again. So I think they're going to be overly protected on any kind of helmet hits right now and have us all screaming week in and week out.
I think we mistake adjusting for overhauling when people just get better at things that they do more often, and I think that's what will happen in this process.
I hope so.
I think that applies more to the helmet rule than it does to the quarterback rule. I think just be prepared for
that.
I
hate quarterback.
Yeah, well, that's understandable.
All right.
Especially since you were on the other side of that. And that's
exactly right.
Living. Oh, by the way, we didn't even mention my visit to Tim Hortons in Canada over the weekend. We'll get to that a little bit later. Coming up, are the Jets going to trade their best quarterback? If so, Junior has the perfect landing spot, and we'll get to that.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can get in touch with us, 860-506-5505. We want to know who won the weekend. Call in and let us know who you think won the weekend. We'll have that a little later on this morning, 860-506-5505. And get in touch with us at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at Golic and Wingo. There's a couple of things we got out there. The biggest debate in breakfast. What's the best breakfast carb, and tell us why, although I have a write-in that's not on there. Mm-hmm. And also, what were we just talking about that was going to be on the Twitter feed? What did I just say?
Oh, as far as the record to be...
record, Emmett Smith or 300 win pitcher. What's
this based off Justin Verlander getting his 200th win, and the only other active guys in that area are 244 and 247 with CC Sabathia, Bartolo Colon. We don't see 300 anymore. 250 may be the new mark. So Trey had asked what will happen first, if at all, a 300 win pitcher or somebody breaking Emmitt Smith's rushing record with the way that running backs are used in the NFL now. I don't think any of us see that record getting broken or 300. I think those two are going to be standing for a long time.
Yeah, it's a weird argument because I think certainly enough has changed structurally about both sports and the way they approach that given position to make an argument, but God, there are so many good young running backs that you'd think maybe on just the merit of talent, but the league has shifted so far away from to the point where the strength of all these guys is they're not just pure runners. Like, you don't have to use them in that way, so it makes it complicated.
The Adrian Petersons of the world aren't in the NFL anymore, though Adrian Peterson may be in the NFL.
Visiting with Washington
working
today.
out the Washington Redskins because they're getting every running back. They have 3 healthy running backs right now with a few weeks still left of preseason games. So they are having all hands on deck, all kinds of running backs showing up in Washington, including Adrian Peterson working out.
Which I don't understand. Look, I understand they need people, but the way Adrian Peterson runs, he's a straight downhill runner, and they do massive zone blocking in the running game in Washington. Not sure that's a good fit. We'll see what happens there going forward. All right, it is now time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And let me just say this before we get to the other stuff. We got to get you off this needing a cart thing because you're missing out on some of the great. This is my straight talk to you. You're missing out on playing some of the most unbelievable golf courses in America.
I don't understand what the difference is. When I'm riding in a cart, I see the exact same things.
Yeah,
the exact same things that when I'm walking.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but you're limiting yourself from some of the most beautiful courses in the world by not
saving myself.
Well, you are. Yeah. I'm just trying to keep you healthy. That's all. I'm just trying to keep you healthy going forward. Actually, as for the real Straight Talk, it's about what's going on with the Jets quarterback situation. But Sam Darnold got the start in the game over Washington, which Washington won 15-13. No one cares about the final score of the preseason game. That's irrelevant. Sam played okay. It's pretty clear that Teddy Bridgewater played an amazing game in this preseason game. And it's pretty clear through the first two preseason games that Teddy Bridgewater has been the best Jets quarterback of this preseason. But you know what? He's not going to be on the Jets roster this season when it rolls around if there's a chance for them to get something for him, because it's going to be Sam Darnold. It's going to be Josh McCown. And ESPN's Jets reporter Rich Cimini was on with Dickerson and Hood and suggested that, look, it's probably going to be somewhere else where Teddy Bridgewater is auditioning for right now.
I think Teddy will be traded. I just have a feeling he's playing well. He's had two really good preseason games. I think his trade value is high. I think the Jets are comfortable enough with Sam Darnold where they would feel okay going in with Sam and Josh McCown. And I think, there's teams out there that may look for a good number two, or, if someone suffers an injury this weekend in the third week of the preseason, it would exacerbate a trade. So I think he'll be traded at some point.
It is amazing. Teddy Bridgewater is the best quarterback on the Jets roster right now. Now Josh McCown hasn't played at all. Right. He hasn't given a chance to show anything. And Josh is also there to be fantastic in the quarterback room and help their young quarterback and Sam Darnold along. But as far as Darnold and Bridgewater has been better. But we all know what the deal is, that Darnold is going to be the guy and he's going to play. There are going to be two quarterbacks, Mike, in my eye, available, and we're going to see the other one tonight. Baltimore's at Indy. Jacoby Brissett, by the way, they see the Colts turn down a second rounder for him to be traded because they have to hang on to him. He played well enough last year, and we still don't know about Andrew Luck. But RG3, he'll see some action tonight. He's not going to be on that roster. Flacco is going to be the starter, and Lamar Jackson's going to get his time there as well. So you have two guys. And now I think I would take Teddy Bridgewater before RG3 for sure, but RG3 is getting a chance to showcase himself to be on another team. So Teddy Bridgewater is doing a great job of showing other teams that he can still play. Now, I don't think if he gets traded for, he's going to get traded for and given a starting spot. But boy, oh boy, if you have that guy as your backup, and the one place I thought of, and I know you mentioned it this morning, is Jacksonville. The only problem with that is, does Jacksonville want to do that to themselves? Because if you trade for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, in an instant, when Blake Bortles throws his first interception, which he will, people are going to scream their lungs out for Teddy Bridgewater, right? Because Teddy is playing well now. Teddy would go to another team, and the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy, especially when your starter is shaky. Now, Jacksonville has said, we believe in Blake Bortles, but you believe in him enough till he starts to hurt your team. We saw last year the coaches didn't even have the confidence to call plays to let him try and do anything in that playoff game that they lost. So that would be my only fear. I think it would be fantastic place for him to be, but man, that would set up something in Jacksonville of a complete quarterback situation once Blake Bortles starts to struggle.
They're not going to do it because they're too invested in protecting Blake's psyche. That's why I didn't even think about drafting a quarterback this year, because Lamar Jackson, I thought, would have been an interesting pick for them towards the end of the first round as a nice insurance policy there. But they're committed to making sure that there are no questions in that locker room surrounding Blake. But man, the fact that the mere mention of bringing Teddy Bridgewater into that quarterback room and cited such a strong response from Jacksonville Jaguars fans that were triggered by that, lets you know how sensitive this situation is. Like, to me, that doesn't scream confidence in your quarterback. That screams a sensitivity about people criticizing a team that is a Super Bowl talented roster outside of their quarterback spot, and admitting that somehow seems dangerous to them.
I'm not so sure that they won't do it. Now, granted, I did predict in March that Teddy Bridgewater would be the starting quarterback with the Jacksonville Jaguars when we did that list of who's going to be the starter everywhere. Look, I think that they know what they have in Jacksonville, and I think they know that they've got you have a very small window when you have a lot of young stars before you have to pay them all. And if you can get a quarterback relatively cheap.
Oh, it would be relatively cheap.
I could say Teddy's what, $6 million right now on the books?
It would be relatively cheap, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a way to do it. Now, listen, there are some issues you'd have to work around, but look, Doug Marrone went into last year saying we want to try and win without throwing the ball. Okay? So, and you, like you said, Junior, you know what you saw at the end of the AFC Championship game where they were like, we have a 4-point lead, let's just make sure we get into the half without something tragic happening. Look, Blake at times played very well last year, but if you can get a relatively cheap quarterback that has been very impressive, and, they're not going to give him away, the Jets aren't going to give him away, but you don't have to get, a ton for him. There's really no reason for them not to try and
there's a big reason not to. I agree 100%. Yeah. And everything you said, I agree with. The reason to not is just what then Mike talked about is the psyche of Blake Bortles. They are trying to eggshell around him. I mean, that's what's going on there, and they want to protect that. And bringing Teddy Bridgewater in, which makes all the sense in the world to do, especially if you need a quarterback to get you a win. I agree with you, Mike. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger and do, because I don't think they're going to like what it's going to do to Blake Bortles. And you know with that first interception what's going to happen. People are going to lose their flipping minds. And I know that doesn't mean you sit there as a coach or players, listen to the fans screaming their heads off. I completely understand that. But man, that would, to me, I think that would disrupt that locker room.
But I don't think it's necessarily a mental weakness thing on the part of Blake Bortles either.
I agree with that.
It's the admission that people in that locker room and people around that kind of in an honest moment probably know this is the area of weakness on our football team right now as we look towards how close we got last year. And I get the argument against this. Well, you were up in the AFC Championship game. Like, you were there. You had the lead. He was already about to get you to a Super Bowl. Well, yeah, but there's a number of things that have to get you to that point along the way in every season. Can you count on another 4-game stretch like we got around November from Blake last year, where we thought maybe he had taken the step and then that bottomed out? Like, if he bottoms out at the wrong time, all of a sudden you're in a position where you're losing out. And again, another year in those at times limited windows. Like, they got a lot of D linemen on the payroll right now that they're not going to be able to keep forever.
Listen, I agree. I think it would be a great move for them to get Teddy, but I just don't know if they're going to do it.
Look, I think that they've been sort of managing this thing with him before. Maybe most important question we should be asking, should they ask Jalen Ramsey if they should bring in Teddy?
Yeah, how about it?
He rated all these
Jalen Ramsey's true serum about his own quarterback, see what he would say.
I would think that would be a very interesting discussion, but maybe they'll just run this through Jalen, where he is on his list of quarterbacks, to see if Teddy Bridgewater is worthy of coming to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. All right, coming up, we've already discussed the Aaron Rodgers rule and how we figure that's going to play into the regular season. Defensive players in the NFL are fired up about the other rule, and Richard Sherman is eloquently leading the charge, and we'll get to that, Mike.
Hey guys, take notes. School is starting up and it's time for the Sport Clips Haircuts Head of the Class giveaway. You could win awesome prizes like a Razor Blade laptop, mouse, keyboard, and more. Just in time for classes, homework, and the fun in between. Did you get all that? Register for your chance to win at sportclips.com/back-to-school and go straight to the head of the class with an MVP experience. So check it online today. Sport Clips, it's your hair's year. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC age 18 plus. Ends 8/24/18.
The game is tried to be made safer. The game is never going to be safer. You can try and make it safer.
What was that? Safer?
Safer.
Then you said safer.
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 Then you said safer.
You said safer.
I said safer.
What did I just say?
And then you said safer.
You never make it safer.
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 Like safe. Okay, never.
All right, coming up next, safer or safer?
It is the pettiest show there is out there.
We are the pettiest show in America. There's no way around it.
No doubt.
Yeah.
At least we admit it.
Yeah. Somebody have a read here or no?
That would be me, yeah.
There you go.
Fair point, guys.
Hello.
Falling asleep at the
Somebody
wheel.
going to do it or what? I'm trying to give you your opportunity.
Hey, listen.
Thinking about flaky croissants.
That's on him.
Breakfast bag, all the above. Sports Center brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Player doesn't like his contract, they hold out, right? With Straight Talk Wireless, you never have to because there is no contract, and they use the exact same 4G LTE towers as the big carriers, but for a lot less. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart. Refer to terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com. I got a sore throat this morning. It's just, there's a lot going on.
Oh, okay.
All
right, Will Ferrell.
All right. Glad you're with us. And glad, Junior, you're with us.
I'll figure it out.
We'll figure that out. So obviously there's been one recurring theme of the preseason, and it has been how you're going to legislate this new helmet rule and some of the things you've seen in it. And Richard Sherman, now with the Niners, the cornerback, I thought put it perfectly. When you saw some of the flags that were out there, it looked like perfectly clean hits where they weren't leading with the helmet, where you weren't driving your helmet into somebody, when you were leading with your shoulder and somebody still got the flag. He wrote there on Twitter, to all those people, including those who made this rule, I want a video of you running full speed and being led by anything but your head while also attempting to bring down a moving target. You will soon realize it's impossible. And he's 100% correct.
And a lot of it though, and I agree with that, but it goes to then when you get there, how do you have your helmet, down or up? Now here's the difference is even if you put your helmet down but hit with your shoulder, they're throwing the flag. That's where now I am a firm believer in instructing from youth level on to now keep your head up a little more because the old 10,000 rep rule. The guys in the NFL, this is the way they've tackled forever, and this is how they're tackling. So they're learning to adjust on the fly. I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. Over the next 10 years, when the next group of little leaguers make it to the NFL, you will see different tackling because different tackling is being taught at the youth level, and we've all come from youth level. That being said, I have now seen defensive backs where in the past they have run full tilt to destroy a receiver, now breaking down, which is exactly what you would like them to do.
Right.
They are breaking down, they are using their shoulder, but their head dips a little bit to the side, and the flag is coming out. And it is maddening to watch. Maddening. Because Richard is right. Your helmet is going to be out there, and they're just looking for it to drop. But if you're not hitting the person with it, they're throwing the flag. And that's something I know, Mike, you said over the reps and with the refs, maybe it'll straighten. And I hope it does. Because I agree with you. That's what preseason is for. Let's hope it does. But that's been the most damning thing. You've wanted guys to keep head out of the tackling. You've wanted guys to use their shoulders and wrap up a little more. And they are. They are. And you're still throwing the flag. I said it for the last years, and I'll continue to say it. To be a defensive back in the NFL now is the toughest job out there because you don't know what the hell or how the hell you can hit anybody.
It is. It's hard. Right? It's absolutely it affects them at a level that's disproportionate to every other position on the field. And I don't want this to make this a thing where it would be, well, would you rather them do nothing? Because that's not a fair answer.
Right.
You would rather them do it right. But I will say is, this is not a time to get dug in. I'm hearing way too much, no, this is bad, this is dumb, and not enough like, all right, I understand the intent here, and maybe after this year, it gets revisited. Maybe after this year, as they continue to gather information, things get better. The one thing I would challenge the NFL is to listen to some of these players as the season goes along, and after the season, bring these guys in and ask them their opinion on this. Richard Sherman comes from an environment in Seattle where they've been teaching rugby tackling for years longer than most other people.
Yeah, listen, that's a great idea. But remember, they did the new anthem policy and said they reached a compromise without talking to a single player.
Oh, listen, I get it, but I'm saying
that, of course, is backfired, so now they're going back and do
Yeah.
that again. They might want to talk to these guys. I think there'll be a very good thing. And you know how easy that would be? And you know how much goodwill that would extend if they could just say, hey, let's bring in and have this conversation? It's not that hard, and it would be great and would be good for both sides. Coming up, how about this? The Red Sox have a lot to learn from the Yankees? We'll get to that after this. Stay with us, Golic and Wingo. Carbs!
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply. Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
Glad you're with us on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can get in touch with us. Who won the weekend? 860-506-5505. We will have your thoughts on that throughout the show. Again, call in 860-506-5505 or get in touch with us at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Golic and Wingo.
Now, you were in Canada over the weekend, correct?
Baby. Yep.
And you quickly mentioned the fact that you went to Timmy Hortons.
I did.
Timmy O's.
So my thought process is, if I really believe you went to Timmy Hortons, where are the boxes of donuts that you brought back for everybody?
Two things. I don't think I could bring them through security, could I? You're not allowed to bring food through things.
Donuts?
I don't think so.
I think that's just
you
an
could
excuse.
declare them. There's a process.
I think
you can go through.
You know
here.
what? If you wanted to bad enough, you could have found a way.
You're right. I didn't want.
Yeah,
to.
you need to buy a terminal.
There you go.
And you know what? I'm going to shatter your dreams even more.
Yeah.
You ready for this? I
Yeah.
went to Tim Hortons, and I did not have a donut.
Boo.
What the hell did you go to Tim Hortons for?
I had a breakfast sandwich. It was delicious.
You are. You know what you are? A loser.
Well, listen, that's never
How do you
been
not
debatable.
have a donut?
Because I wanted a breakfast sandwich.
Not for nothing.
Okay.
While we're having the breakfast sandwich conversation that's going on in the Golic and Wingo Twitter feed right now, the Timmy Hortons biscuit, best in the game.
Biscuits are criminally underrated in that poll.
Hot.
A hot, flaky biscuit.
Ooh.
Now, I don't know where you guys stand on a Southern staple, biscuits and gravy.
Oh,
phenomenal. What we're talking
Trey,
about
we were
is
fat for a long time, man.
Listen, real quickly. When I see a good biscuits and gravy,
what we're talking
same
about.
thing as that.
Mike brought it up this morning on his show First and Last. Rank the breakfast. It's Zach Golic and Wingo. Rank the breakfast carbs and tell us why. Now, again, this is more for breakfast sandwiches because the what's on there to choose from are biscuit, bagel, English muffin, and croissant. I think the English muffin is highly underrated with the nooks and crannies.
I'm telling
to
you,
soak
man,
up the
you
butter,
got
the jelly,
so
whatever.
So much
Absolutely.
surface area. It's
Huge.
like a sponge.
Shoot.
Sponging. But don't let this distract you from the fact that Trey went to Timmy Hortons and didn't get a donut.
That's exactly right.
I did not.
That is.
I didn't.
It's unreal.
I feel bad about it.
Yeah, it's awful.
But not that bad. All right, how bad should the Red Sox feel about Chris Sale? How bad should the Yankees feel about Didi Gregorius and that bruised heel? We'll get into all of that with Buster Olney from Baseball Tonight. Joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And here's the greatest read of all. Get triple action protection for optimal engine performance with the Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Yeah! And that is how we bring in Buster Olney. You can check out the Baseball Tonight podcast with new episodes weekdays. Listen to the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. All right, Buster, good morning. Before we get into anything else, let's just celebrate the one thing that was so cool over the weekend. Seeing the Mets and Phillies playing in front of all those Little Leaguers and then seeing some of the Mets watch the Little Leaguers in the Little League World Series Classic. I'm telling you, that is the coolest thing I've seen in a long time.
It is really the coolest thing, and I always love how the players absolutely rise to the occasion. You know, the both teams showing up on flights and being greeted by Little Leaguers, and the Little Leaguers riding the bus with them to the ballpark here in Williamsport. And you know, from what I heard from the players, there's a dance contest between the Little Leaguers, the Phillies and Mets players having fun with that. The interplay and how much the players love that. You know, all the Phillies got to the ballpark, the minor league park here, to play their game. And Jake Arrieta, who's a starting pitcher, and his schedule is pretty much over for the day, work schedule. And so he asked the Philly staff, hey, can I go back to the Little League parks? And so he went back, and other guys went back to Little League parks to hang out more. Last night, after the game, I was watching Reese Hoskins, who, had so much fun with the Little Leaguers over at the ballpark. The Phillies lose the game. It's at the end of the day. He's one of the last players to file off, and he had this group of about 5-10 Little Leaguers standing there screaming for him, and he puts down his bat, he puts down his glove, and he signs autographs, and then he goes into the clubhouse. It was so cool to see the way the players react.
Well, I mean, all these players came from not the Little League World Series necessarily, but from Little League. It's a cool thing to kind of look back on where you came from. And every year at the Little League World Series, Buster, there's some storylines or some players. And this year, one of them is Big Al, who hits dingers. And so, what else you have on Big? He is becoming the story of the Little League World Series, a fun kid.
Yeah, when I checked into the hotel the other day, Big Al was in the lobby and he was surrounded. Okay, and I couldn't get close to him. And I don't know if you guys have seen the video that Reese Hoskins taped with him, where he sat down and just talked about how here's Big Al. He and I both love the same thing, dingers. and you're right. And he was going around behind home plate signing autographs. Sean Yamaguchi is one of the stars of Team Hawaii, and I interviewed him during the course of last night's game. And as we got started, I asked him, "Hey, how you doing?" And he was like, "Man," he was overwhelmed by all the autograph seekers in the crowd. And he said that he and another friend had been signing for the better part of an hour. And he mentioned to me he was hungry. He was hoping to eat some stuff and get to that, but he just had so many autographs to sign at the age of 12.
Man, that is my hero now. Listen, I want to sit here and sign for you guys all day, but I got a snack bar to attend to. Big Al is the hero that we all deserve right now. Talking to Buster Olney of the Baseball Tonight podcast, our ESPN MLB insider. All right, Buster, I could sit here and talk about Big Al with you all day. I hope you got an autograph. But in the world of Major League Baseball, we were having a discussion this morning. Justin Verlander gets his 200th win last night as the Astros retake first place in that division against the A's. But we were thinking big picture here. The 300-win pitcher, is that completely a thing of the past at this point?
Absolutely. The way that starting pitchers are used now, where essentially teams are saying, do not expose them for much past 2 times through the order. You're just not going to see starting pitchers left in the game long enough to get decisions to get that many wins. And the last decade, I've had a running conversation with CC Sabathia about 300 wins, and I think he's like at 244 right now. And so each spring I'd say, CC, you going to do it? You're going to get to 300? And he's like, no. This spring when I asked him, his answer was 2 words, no, and the first one started with an F. Where he's like, that is just not happening in this day and age. A good year for a starting pitcher now is if you win 15 games. So I think the standards for the Hall of Fame will naturally come down because of that. That's why I think one way or the other, Justin Verlander's already punched his ticket to the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. We're talking to Buster Olney, our baseball insider, about what's going on not only in the Little League World Series, but what's going on in the bigs. Listen, what's more of a concern for you right now, depending on how important they are to the team? The bruised heel to Didi Gregorius of the Yankees, or Chris Sale once again, Buster, their ace, going back on the DL with shoulder soreness in that throwing shoulder?
Well, I'm more concerned about Chris Sale because this is now multiple situations for him this year. Now, when you talk to the Red Sox, and Chris Sale has told reporters, look, if this were in the postseason, it wouldn't be a big deal. We've seen him through the course of his career. He has a difficult time maintaining his performance through the end of the year. The Red Sox have worked really diligently, Alex Cora, the new manager, in reducing his pitch count and saving innings for later in the year. But you wonder what's going on there. I had a general manager years ago laugh at me when, as his team handed out a diagnosis of inflammation in the shoulder, he said, that doesn't tell you guys anything. We're not giving you any information. That's merely a symptom. And I think the underlying question in this is what is causing the inflammation. The Red Sox probably aren't going to tell us. Now, the good thing is they have such a big lead in the East that they've got time to manage this. That's the same thing with the Yankees and Gregorius. Let's face it, they're probably not going to win the division, being 9.5 games out. So they also have the time to manage that situation with Gregorius, Aaron Judge, et cetera, and get them right for that wild card game.
Buster, while we're on that subject, what can the 2018 Red Sox learn from the 1998 Yankees who were honored over the weekend?
Yeah, and I covered that 98 Yankee team for the New York Times. And, look, they blitzed through the regular season. They won 114 games. And it was amazing how this 6.5 months of dominance seemed to evaporate within the span of 48 hours. They were playing the Cleveland Indians, who had eliminated them the year before in the playoffs. They fell behind in the American League Championship Series 2-1. And right then, you could see in the players and their demeanors and their faces, they understood that you can have an amazing regular season and a record-setting number of victories. None of it matters unless you validate it by winning the World Series. And so there was a period in that postseason, in which you could see the pressure on the players. And that's what the Red Sox can expect. That as dominant as they've been, when they get to October, they're going to be facing a different, special kind of pressure that they've never dealt with before.
Buster, in the musical chairs of the National League, whether it's division or the wild card, right now you sit there, you have 5 teams a game and a half out, or within a game and a half of each other for the 2 wild card spots. So when this game of musical chairs ends, who do you think gets left out of that wild card in the National League?
Golic, I'm worried about the Dodgers. Look, the absence of Kenley Jansen from their bullpen has been a big deal because they've got a lot of other guys who are good in setup roles or good in specialized roles. But Kenley Jansen has been one of the best closers in baseball, and with him out, that bullpen has really suffered. So I think they're going to wind up being out. I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to wind up being in. It's been amazing to see their transformation since they changed managers. Look, I think Mike Matheny's a great baseball guy, but we were around the Cardinals in the second day after that managerial change was made. Mike Schilt took over. It was remarkable to see how the players reacted to Schilt. And you hear from guys, look, he's someone you root for. He's someone that you really like. This is someone whose first job after he finished college was a high school baseball coach. He's not someone who played professionally. So the Cardinals have really taken off under him, and they're just gathering momentum.
They certainly are, as we're talking to Buster Olney, our baseball insider. Buster, there's been a lot of talk about the Urena suspension for what he did to Ronald Acuna, and Rob Manfred was on and talking about why he thought the suspension handed down 6 games was valid.
We had a lot of conversation about the incident before the suspension. I think it's fair to say that the suspension was at the outside of the envelope of what we have done in the past. We are having ongoing conversation about it. Obviously, anything in the game where you put a player, particularly a player as important as that player at that point in the season to that particular club, it makes you think about what you ought to do going forward in order to make sure you don't have those kinds of incidents.
You agree with that, Buster?
I agree with everything he said. I would have handled it differently if I were in his case. If they had given Urena a 10-game suspension, that would have just been for show. The union would have stepped in. It wouldn't have been in line with precedent. The union probably would have won any sort of grievance, but I think in that case it was worth it to make that point and essentially say, look, we're going to, in an effort to change this culture around just throwing at guys, we are going to give a high number of games to get the players' attention, and if you guys get it back down to 6, that's fine. And I think that would have been a great case to have it. Over the weekend, Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds was a victim of retaliation in a game on August 4th. He was hit on the knee, 96-mile-per-hour fastball by Ryan Madsen. He was so angry in that moment. He was yelling at Madsen, like, what are we doing here? And he tried to get it right for a couple weeks. He went on the disabled list on Saturday. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid part of the baseball culture.
Certainly is, as we're talking to Buster. What's not a stupid part of the baseball culture is that the Oakland A's have had a lot of winning moments recently. Winning moments brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. A lot of people seem to think, Buster, this is cute what the A's are doing, but when push comes to shove, the Astros are going to be where they are right now atop that division. What do you think the realistic chances are for the A's to make this competitive and even have a chance to actually win the division?
Oh, I think they're right there for a couple reasons. One, the Astros have gone through this recent slide because they had so many of their key guys out. Carlos Correa just came back a week ago. George Springer came back, I think it was in Friday's game. Jose Altuve making his way back. The question with Altuve, who's dealing with those lingering knee issues, how will he be down the stretch? So the Astros, their strength is predicated in that everyday lineup. We'll see how good they are down in these final games. And the other thing, too, that really works for the Athletics, I think, that's a team among all the contenders, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Astros, the Indians. There's no pressure on that group. Like, they're just out there having fun. All these young guys, Matt Chapman, Blake Trinan doing a great job out of the bullpen. It feels like that they are just gathering momentum as they go. And I guarantee you this, if they wind up playing the wild card game or if they wind up winning the division, that's a team nobody is going to want to play.
Oh, and if only people would come out to see them, as Matt Chapman had to say, hey, come watch us, Buster. We're actually a fun team, right? That was one of the most interesting things of that entire discussion. All right, Buster, we appreciate it. Thanks for being with us this morning and sharing your insights.
Thanks, Buster.
See you guys. Take care.
Buster Olney with us.
You know, as far as hitting the batter, someone tweeted in if the PGA took a page out of baseball's playbook and someone hit Snedeker with a errant 7-iron after he shot his 59, maybe he wouldn't have won that tournament. But
you got to brush him back sometimes.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the suspension?
Listen, I get what Rob Manfred is saying, but it was so deliberate and so obvious what was going on. And as a starter, what is he missing? What's he really missing?
He's so
one
here.
Start.
But here's the difference. So you know what one start is equal to for a starting pitcher and a regular player. So what if a player got a 5-game suspension? Just again, I hate to say this, but simple math.
Yeah.
162 games, 5 games is 3%.
Yeah.
One start, pitchers average about 30, 32 starts, 3%. It's the same percentage. So you can't have a starter miss 6 starts or 5 or 6 starts. That's a monstrous percentage of time that would be missed. Now, I agree. I think it's getting ridiculous of what's going on with this. But as far as percentage-wise, it is of equal percent to a 5% for a player or a 5-game to a everyday player that's on the field.
I'll just look at it and say it's not been a deterrent for this kind of behavior.
I agree with that.
So you have to up the ante, and I thought that was the point that Buster made strongly there, because you heard Rob Manfred when he furthered the explanation basically saying, hey, listen, it's not always that simple. It's a little more complicated than this. A lot of times these guys are throwing because they're told to. It's, on behalf of a locker room. So you're already punishing a team by not having that guy out there. Well, yeah, you're punishing a team for enabling that behavior. That's the behavior you want to curb. And so the only way to do that and to show you're serious is to take guys off the field for that. And until you're willing to do that, right, you lose me on this idea that you're at all serious about stopping guys from throwing at other guys.
And that leads us to the bigger discussion that I think Buster was getting to when he said this ridiculous culture of baseball, the unwritten rules, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I know people have said this a million times, but if they're so freaking important, write them down.
Well, here's the thing. Every sport has forget the unwritten rules. Yeah. Every sport has its own way of policing, right? That doesn't involve the officials, the umpires, whatever. And this is baseball's. This is baseball's way of policing an act. So then it just comes down to what you think of it. In football, it's getting away with something in a pile. A knee, a foot, stepping on something, doing something that in hockey, it's the fight with the enforcers. You have the guys that are going to fight, which has taken a step back,
which has been
hockey.
Largely eradicated from the NHL level, period.
Yes, it has. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about because I do believe there has to be some self-policing in a sport. But then it gets to how blurred is the line of, okay, this is acceptable and this is not acceptable.
And that's where we are, right? That's the entire situation. Look, I don't know there's a perfect solution to that, but I got to be honest with you. What you said from a percentage-wise makes all the sense in the world to me. But to your point, Junior, if the idea is we're trying to get rid of this entire thing and this percentage match for match isn't working, then you kind of have to up the ante, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's percentage match to match. Like, you're never going to have somebody in the field suspended for throwing a ball at someone. Like, this is just something that's unique to the realm of pitching, so you've got to treat it as such. You've got to make it hurt a little bit more than it presently does. But if they're not going to change this rule and it doesn't sound like the commissioner feels any sort of pressing need, then we're just going to kind of keep spinning the wheel and having this conversation until one young star gets hurt enough for them to do something about it, because that's always what it takes, right? It takes someone. Yeah. It takes Aaron Rodgers breaking his collarbone for you to make a rule like this. It would take Ronald Acuna Jr. breaking his elbow or something like that.
Yeah, where that hit him. Could you imagine Vez? All of a sudden his elbow is broken and he's out.
Well, what happened when someone slid into Buster Posey a few years ago, right?
Changed the rule.
Suddenly they changed the rule. It's like, where's the line of demarcation? What do you need for someone to be hurt long enough for us to say, yeah, we really need to change
Acuna
this?
didn't help. Yeah. He didn't have his elbow broken, so it didn't help.
Now, so how dare he?
Yeah.
How dare you not break your elbow on that?
Exactly.
Because if you had just thought of everybody else and allowed your elbow to be broken,
then maybe this would change.
Then we could have fixed this for everybody.
Could have been part of the change.
Yeah, we'd have been one step closer to fixing baseball.
Yeah. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. I'm not sure any of that discussion was any way progressive in any way, shape, or form. However, what is progressive? We got college football this weekend.
Yes, we do.
We have games in college football this weekend.
Week 0.
And according to other college football coaches, the most overrated coach in the country is in the Big Ten, and it's not Jim Harbaugh.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News on a Monday morning. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can get in touch with us via the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed or call in on our voicemail line, 860-506-5505. And people have already been chiming in on that about a million different things, including our poll question, what is the best breakfast carb in relation to making a breakfast sandwich,
right? Which
was the part that was left off to begin with, because I was hot and bothered that hash browns were not a part of it, because hot and bothered is how I feel whenever I have a good hash brown.
Oh, my God.
But what were the choices up there in that poll question, Junior?
It was biscuits, croissant, English muffin, bagel.
Bagel, okay. People are weighing in, and people are hating on the biscuits, and I don't understand this.
Hey guys, this is Orville, and I've always had the problem that a biscuit crumbles a lot more than a croissant does. So if you're eating this in the car, you best not be eating it while you're driving. And if you're sitting in one of the other seats, you should have something underneath it to catch the crumbs anyway.
All right, I agree with that.
We handle all the big problems here.
Biscuit does flake. I think the croissant flakes more.
It breaks off into little pieces more.
It does. But
unless that biscuit is as hard as a rock.
Right. The biscuit does do that. But I think the biscuit is most versatile because the biscuit can do any of the other things. Plus, name one of the other choices out there that you can put gravy over.
All of them?
You know what I'm talking about. I mean, biscuits and gravy.
I mean, in a way that's established already, no, but if you want
to be a
to
trendsetter,
broaden your horizons,
hell-bent and bound for glory.
Okay.
Free your mind.
Blaze your own path.
Red pill or blue pill.
There you go. People are also waiting. So that was a negative biscuit situation. Here's a positive biscuit situation.
The best breakfast is biscuits and gravy from Whataburger. Add chopped bacon and scrambled eggs on top. Biscuits and gravy from Whataburger is the best breakfast, hands down.
That's pretty good, by the way. Spent a lot of time in Texas.
See, I did as well. Whataburger, it wasn't Whataburger's fault.
Yeah.
I had a very, very, very rough night.
Yeah.
Tried to get absorption at Whataburger at about 2 a.m. and lost everything.
Well, then it did it. Then it did its job.
I know, but
your soul.
But I have not been to a Whataburger since,
really?
And it's not Whataburger's fault.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's his fault. It's just
sounds like
it happened by eating one, but as a condition I was in.
Are you guys not distracted by what's been put on our screen right now? So Stanzik threw this up there. It's a tweet from Melinda Mayo saying, "This is how we wedding in Southeast Arkansas. It's a gravy fountain with biscuits on the inside. Think like a chocolate fondue fountain.
Chocolate fondue
but
or
it's made
a cheese
of gravy.
Fountain. It is literally, yes, but perfectly. Think of the chocolate fondue or the cheese station or whatever.
Man.
And it is actually gravy.
It's a gravy fountain.
Being able to put
Holy
cheese
smokes.
underneath that, maybe some chicken tendies, some French fries.
That is awesome.
That's like where I was over the weekend, that would be considered a poutine fountain.
Well, there you have it.
It would be a poutine fountain north of the border.
That works.
By the way, that was Buster that emailed that to us. So Buster is always looking out for this show.
Appreciate that.
Thank God
Buster.
somebody has to.
Phenomenal.
Okay, so we got football coming up this weekend.
Four
Golic and
games.
Wingo reminding you to grab your tickets for the Northern Trust Open in Paramus, New Jersey, Friday, August 24th. Come watch our show before taking a day of championship golf at the FedEx. Of course, that's Friday, and then this Saturday we've got football games.
4 games.
Yeah.
So it is starting off what week? Is
week
this
0?
This is week 0.
Week pre-1.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Week pre-1.
Week 0, as it's dubbed here at the Worldwide Leader.
So 4 games, and then Thursday, next Thursday, August 30th, you start to hit a pretty meaty schedule going into that first weekend of games. But 4 games going on. There is a poll out there. CBS Sports college football writers. All right, guys, quick math. You ready?
Yeah.
Spoke with 1/5 of 129 active coaches.
No idea.
How many is that? Come on.
1/5
of 129.
24.
No. Close.
I mean, it's got to be a little over, a little over 25, 26?
Yes, there you go.
What was
Between
it?
25 and 26.
I was off by 1.
Yeah, you were a lot
Pretty
closer
good.
than I thought.
Thank
so
you.
basically,
you know my philosophy.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that there would be no math.
They talked to about 25 coaches that are coaching FBS teams entering this season over a bunch of different things, anything from NCAA rules to social issues to their peers. And here's where it gets interesting, because not only do you get a percentage, you get some comments as well.
Yeah, again, these are great because you don't have to say who you are.
But these are coaches talking about other coaches. Who is the most overrated coach in college football? It's a tie at 20% each. Willie Taggart, Florida State. James Franklin, Penn State.
Now, hold on a second.
Get him.
I can understand the Willie Taggart thing because we've never seen him establish a program. He's gone somewhere and had some success, and then he goes somewhere else. 3 of the 4 bowl teams he's had, he wasn't around to coach them in the bowl game, right? That's the situation there. So I understand that. But James Franklin? Doc Clippers?
One of the comments, again, these coaches, these comments are from coaches, their peers. In a comment where it says, explain yourselves about the overrated. James Franklin, one of the other coaches, said his coaching peers know he's full of it. That's what they
see. This is always interesting because we judge coaching based on wins and losses and all this stuff that we can see from the outside. These guys all actually know what kind of coach you are. And Dad, you know this. You've been around a lot of coaches in your time that might have the accolades to back it up, but can't coach worth a lick.
Let me tell you, it is one of the great lies out there. It's really the same as players, but players have to go on the field and you can see battles winning or losing. Just because you're a coach in college, big time college, or for that matter, in the NFL, and I don't mean just head coach. I mean assistant coaches. Doesn't mean you're a great coach.
And just because you win awards as a player, as a coach, doesn't make you necessarily the most deserving of that. That stuff is highly political.
So Willie Taggart was tied with Franklin. On Willie Taggart, this is another coach saying, I would say Willie Taggart. He was only at Oregon for 1 year. It's not like he really transformed that program, and that's a place that's won for a long time. Not that he isn't good. He's won, but usually when you get a job like Florida State, it's because you've won some championship or done something really amazing. Another coach said Willie Taggart because he still has a career losing record.
That first quote, it sounds like someone else wanted that job.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure there's a little bit of that in all of this.
It's a little bit like somebody else wanted that job, which I find very interesting. I also find very interesting that somehow David Shaw is rated as the one of the most underrated coaches in football at 12%, but he also got votes as one of the most overrated coaches.
Well, this is like A-Rod in baseball, most hated player and best player and all that kind of thing. He would cover both sides of the coin all the time as well.
And the quote on David Shaw, explain yourselves as overrated. He does a great job, but oh my Lord, I mean, it's like God's gift to football. I didn't say he didn't do a good job. So what's your issue? I need more clarity from this anonymous coach because it sounds like he's talking himself into circles here. You know, I think he's jealousy of the pub, but then he realizes he actually does a good job.
Well, it's interesting how you judge this because in so many of these
judge not lest ye be judged.
Well, like Kirk Ferentz is listed as one of the most overrated coaches, and I don't understand how overrated to me would be someone who is given lofty expectations that they don't live up to. Like Kirk Ferentz, do we ever really expect Iowa to contend for a Big Ten title with the likes of Ohio State and Michigan? We're not picking them as preseason favorites. Usually now, Iowa's been very good. They're always rock solid, great along the lines of scrimmage. They've had great DB play for the last few years. But in general, Iowa's not a team that you think is so strapped with talent that the expectation should always be there. Like I saw someone criticizing Nick Saban saying it's easy to roll in with the best roster in college football and win. That to me at least logically makes a little more sense than looking at Kirk Ferentz and saying maybe just because of the contract number and the security you're overrated. I'm not sure how you've handicapped
Here's
that
a couple of remember, again, these are comments from other coaches. Because you mentioned Saban, I'll read his first. And then there's one about Jimbo Fisher, now at Texas A&M. This is about Saban. If you had the number one recruiting class in the country every year, you'd win like Nick Saban. He shows up at every single game with a better roster than the team he's playing. If you count cheating and getting the best players in the country as part of running a program, he's the best in the country. Wow.
Now, hold on a minute now.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's be clear about that. If you count cheating, if someone said that to you, what would be your next question be?
What is the
How's he cheating?
Right.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say that, I think you need to back that up with something.
And of course, this coach does. And he goes on to say, it's like saying an NFL coach is the best coach in the league if he gets 25 first-round picks every year.
But hold on a minute. I think that is missing one of the most critical parts of college football, and that's recruiting. Okay? If you don't recruit, you're not going to win, right?
Yes.
That's part of the scenario.
Yes, it is.
And let's be honest, is recruiting a skill?
Yes.
Exactly. So I think that's a bogus argument. Don't blame him for being the best at one is a big part of the job, which is recruiting and getting the best players.
I'll say it is a skill to do, but once you become one of the best programs, it does become a little easier. I'm not going to lie about that. But there is no way on God's green earth I'd put Nick Saban in an overrated category by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I mean, and Nick Saban would be the first one to tell you that the part of his job that he enjoys the most at Alabama is being able to go and get those recruits. Mm-hmm. I mean, for those years when he was at Michigan State, we just can't go get the same caliber of kid as we're getting in Alabama. He realized there was a ceiling there, and that's why he is at Alabama now.
And one of the reasons he's the best is the atmosphere around him that he brings around him, which leads to some votes for overrated for Jimbo Fisher. This again, another coach, one of his peers saying this about Jimbo Fisher. We're going to see in the next 3 years what happens with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. That disaster last year at Florida State, he prides himself on being just like Nick Saban. He only worked for him for a couple of years. He never had the organizational skills. He flies by the seat of his pants. It looks like it's organized, and the words he uses are the same. But if you talk to people who work in his office, the desk is sloppy, the rooms are sloppy. That's, again, from another coach talking about Jimbo Fisher.
So now we're talking about tidiness in the office?
Well, no, listen, Trey, that all does go together. I'm not going to lie, especially, I think, in a college, the atmosphere that you have around you. I mean, and this is what coaches look at. They will look at things like that, and they will make it part of their process to be organized, and that would include having a clean workspace and all that. It does go down to that. While I don't know about this is a coach saying other coaches who have worked for Jimbo have seen this, but I certainly know that there are some coaches, and Nick Saban would be one of them, who would work on that, who would make sure that was part of their process as well.
I mean, that's something that going the other way, college coaches do and enforce with players all the time. We had a very strict sort of locker room code as to how everything was supposed to look in your locker and everything like that. I had an offensive line coach, Frank Verducci, who said straight up, he's like, I won't put a center on the field, a guy who is in a communicating position, who doesn't have his house in order, who doesn't have his off-the-field stuff in order, who doesn't have his life sort of cleaned up, because those are all transferable traits. Now, the direct correlation between your desk and your job isn't there, but it sounds like this is more about how you carry yourself in general.
Hey guys, take notes. School is starting up and it's time for the Sport Clips Haircuts Head of the Class giveaway. You could win awesome prizes like a razor blade laptop, mouse, keyboard, and more. Just in time for classes, homework, and the fun in between. Did you get all that? Register for your chance to win at sportclips.com/back-to-school and go straight to the head of the class with an MVP experience. So check it online today. Sport Clips, it's your hair's year. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC age 18 plus. Ends 8/24/18.
You know how concerned you are about Zach Martin?
Zach hurt his knee. The doctors were somewhat optimistic.
Losing Zach Martin, while it's not the same as losing a quarterback, it's pretty damn close.
We'll probably do an MRI.
He's one of the best offensive linemen. I don't think that's something that you can easily replace.
God, Dominique Foxworth just gets it, man. SportsCenter brought to you by Sport Clips. Do your hair a favor by checking in online and arriving just in time for your Sport Clips MVP haircut experience. While you surround yourself with sports on TV, great cut, massaging shampoo, and a hot steam towel, Claim your spot today. Sportclips.com/check-in.
All right, glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We've had a raging hot debate, literally, about the best breakfast carb sandwich material this morning, and everybody's weighing in. 860-506-5505. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a voicemail now that I could not disagree with more.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. You can't have biscuits and gravy for breakfast. That is not a breakfast. If you want to talk about biscuits, what about cornbread?
All right, two things here. First of all, this guy obviously follows the show because he played the whoa card, so good for him. Secondly, he's also clearly never lived south of the Mason-Dixon line. Because if you don't know biscuits and gravy as a breakfast staple, you're crazy. By the way, that caller came in from a New York area code, so clearly he's never been south.
No idea.
Son, let me tell you something. Head down south, have yourself some biscuits and gravy. Your worldview will change. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, live a little bit.
All I'm saying.
Wow.
I say that guy probably think grits is multiple Danny Woodheads.
Well, that's like also what is a grit?
Singular grit.
Well, my cousin Vinny, what is a grit?
What is a grit?
No, if you don't know grits and you don't know biscuits and gravy, you clearly never lived south of the Mason-Dixon line, and that needs to happen.
Disgusting.
Okay, there was some bad news that tuned into some very good news in a way for the Dallas Cowboys, because there was a collective in their preseason game against the Bengals when Zach Martin went right on a play and stayed down for a while because of an injury to his knee. They just backed up the Brinks truck, deservedly so, to him to get paid, and everybody looked like this could be a very bad situation. As it turns out, no structural damage to the knee. It's hyperextension and a bone bruise, but they believe Zach will be able to play week 1 of the regular season.
Listen,
against Carolina.
As a teammate of yours and Jake's, and certainly all those guys that you played with, I got very close to, and watching these guys all kind of grow up and play, and now the ones that are playing the NFL. So it's for me anyway, it's somewhat fatherly when I see some of the guys that are playing that I knew for so many years get hurt. But for the rest of the Cowboys to see this guy go down. When it happened, the tweet came out, Cowboys announced a knee injury for Zach Martin. My daughter Sydney immediately tweeted, "Don't do this. Take my knee instead."
I mean, seriously, I already lost.
As a father, you got to say, no. No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. She doesn't,
what does she need it for anyway?
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
walking?
Yeah. Honestly, though, I had already lost Isaiah Wynn this week. If this had happened, I probably would have boycotted the season.
I know.
Like, what other reason is there to watch?
But let's be clear about one thing. People are like, it's only a bone bruise. Well, hold on a minute now. Bone bruises are serious and can linger.
Listen, the bottom line, though, to this thing is it was great news coming out because of how many ACLs we've already seen, how many guys that are out for the year. You mentioned the first-round pick of the Patriots, who I think behind Quentin Nelson was the next best lineman in this draft, and Isaiah Wynn could play any position on the offensive line. Blew his Achilles out. He's already done for the year in New England. We saw Minnesota Viking players go down with knee injuries. I mean, they're done. Zach, you take that breath, but then you realize that he looks like he'll be back for the beginning of the season for the first game, probably. But bottom line, it's not a season-ending injury, and he's going to be back.
Gutless defensive backs cutting in space.
Would you? Oh, seriously. It's exactly what he should do.
I mean, it's
DB.
just
yeah,
so
that's
typical.
right. See a 320-pounder come pulling at you. You're a 190-pound DB.
Bow
what
your
do you
neck,
do?
sky your eyes.
Take your legs right out from under him. Take your legs out.
Make sure you don't get your helmet in on the hit.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly
that
right.
much we know. For a fact, you better not do that. But listen, as good as it is that it's just a hyperextension and a bone bruise, I'm telling you, I'm going to be watching him very carefully because those bone bruises tend to linger, especially when you're guy his size.
Look what happened with lingering injuries last year with the Cowboys. Tyron Smith went into last season with a lot of those back questions, and it only got worse. He had to miss time. We always had this debate about the MVP of the team. Was it the offensive line? Was it Zeke? You know what we figured out? It's kind of an ecosystem that requires all of them to be on the field. They, like every team, works best together, but in conjunction. This O-line's health, like when Zach got there, it was sort of the capstone for this. And when you remove any of the parts, everything seems to fall apart for them.
It'll be interesting because, again, we'll keep an eye on it, but right now it's not an injury where he's done for the year. Another injury to keep an eye on that happened a weekend. How about A.J. McCarron with the hairline fracture of the collarbone? Could Josh Allen beat out Peterman and be the starting quarterback in week 1?
Well, Mel Kiper has a very strong take on that. We'll get to that. Golic and Wingo brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Upgrade to shaving with a fresh blade for a fraction of the price. Join Dollar Shave Club today. Coming up, the most dominant performance of the weekend by a bona fide hero. Stay with us.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on